The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed under the light of 3 different suns. Inside, representatives from 200 alien species sat in their designated seats, each one looking down at the small human delegation below. The humans looked tiny compared to the towering Vorac warriors, the floating Aetherian energy beings, and the massive shell-covered Krex elders. Ambassador Chan stood at the speaking platform, her hands folded behind her back. She looked calm, but those who knew humans well might have noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. Behind her sat the rest of Earth's diplomatic team, 5 humans in simple dark suits that seemed plain compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other species. Above them all, Speaker Valdris of the ancient Aetherian collective floated in his energy form, his voice echoing through the chamber without need for vocal cords. The Aetherians had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. To them, humanity was barely more than clever animals that had just learned to leave their home planet. The Council recognizes Commander Thratch of the Vorac Empire, Valdris announced. The massive Vorac warrior rose from his seat. Thratch stood nearly 9 feet tall, his forearms ending in claws that could tear through metal. His red skin bore the ritual scars of countless battles, each one telling a story of honor and victory. The bone crest on his skull marked him as nobility, a commander who had never known defeat. Honor Council, Thratch's voice boomed through the chamber. The Vorac Empire brings a matter of great importance. The humans have claimed mining rights to 17 systems in the outer spiral. These systems contain resources that rightfully belong to established members of this council. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several alien species nodded in agreement. The humans had joined the Galactic Council only 50 years ago, which was yesterday in galactic terms. Many species had been members for thousands of years. Thratch continued, his forearms gesturing dramatically. The Vorac Empire has protected these systems for over 8 centuries. We have fought and died to keep them safe from pirates and raiders. Now these newcomers claim they have the right to mine our world simply because they were the first to file proper paperwork. More murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. The Krex delegation clicked their approval with their massive claws. The insectoid Zax species buzzed in harmony to show support. Even some of the more neutral species seemed to side with the Vorac position. Ambassador Chan stepped forward. May I respond to these accusations? Speaker Valdris's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. The council recognizes the human delegation. Chan looked up at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. She had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years. She had sat through countless meetings where other species treated humans like children who needed guidance. She had smiled politely while alien diplomats explained how things worked in the real galaxy. She had bitten her tongue when species that had never fought a real war lectured her about military strategy. The 17 systems in question were unclaimed territory according to galactic law, Chan said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Earth followed all proper procedures. We filed exploration claims, conducted mineral surveys, and submitted our findings to the Council Registry. Everything was done exactly as the law requires. Commander Thratch's bone crest flared with anger. Laws? You speak of laws. The Vorac Empire has spilled blood for those systems. We have honor claims that go back centuries. What do you humans know of honor? Chan felt something cold settle in her stomach. She knew where this was heading. The Vorac were a warrior culture that believed might made right. They respected only strength, and they saw humans as weak because Earth had never fought a major galactic war. We know enough about honor to follow the laws we agreed to when we joined this council. Chan replied, if the Vorac Empire wanted to claim those systems, they should have filed the proper paperwork centuries ago. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and alien roars. Several species began arguing among themselves. The Vorac delegation stood as one, their claws extended in challenge. Commander Thratch's voice rose above the noise. Paper. You think your human paperwork means more than Vorac blood, more than Vorac honor. Speaker Valdris extended energy tendrils to restore order. The council will maintain proper decorum. But Thratch was beyond caring about decorum. His species had been warriors for thousands of years. They had conquered dozens of worlds through strength and courage. They would not be lectured by humans who had barely learned to leave their own solar system. The Vorac Empire issues this ultimatum, Thratch declared. The humans will withdraw their claims to all disputed systems within 30 standard days. They will pay compensation for the insult to Vorac honor, and they will acknowledge that junior species do not challenge their betters. The chamber fell silent. This was not how diplomatic disputes were normally handled. Usually, such matters went to arbitration committees that spent years working out complex agreements. Direct ultimatums were considered crude and primitive. Ambassador Chan felt her heart rate increase, but her voice remained steady. Earth rejects this ultimatum. We will not abandon legal claims because someone threatens us. Commander Thratch's claws scraped against the metal of his seat. Then you will learn what happens when young species forget their place. Speaker Valdres pulsed with concern. Commander Thratch, the Council strongly advises against military action over territorial disputes. There are proper channels for resolving such matters. The Vorac Empire has used your proper channels for 50 years, Thratch snarled. We have watched while species that never fought for anything claim the rewards of our sacrifice. No more. The humans will learn to show proper respect, or they will be taught. The massive warrior turned to stare directly at Ambassador Chan. 30 days, human. Withdraw your claims and pay tribute, or face the consequences. Chan stared back without flinching. Around her, she could feel the tension in the chamber. Most council members looked uncomfortable. They preferred their conflicts to be civilized, settled through negotiations and compromise. The Vorac were threatening the kind of direct military action that hadn't been seen in the central galaxy for centuries. Earth's position remains unchanged, Chan said quietly. We will not abandon legal claims because of threats. Thratch's bone crest flared again. He turned and stalked out of the chamber, followed by the rest of the Vorac delegation. Their heavy footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Speaker Valdres floated down closer to the human delegation. Ambassador Chan, perhaps it would be wise to reconsider. The Vorac are passionate about matters of honor. Surely some compromise can be reached. Chan looked up at the ancient energy being. Valdres had been alive for over 3,000 years. He had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. To him, the current dispute was just another minor territorial squabble that could be solved through patient negotiation. With respect, Speaker Valdres, Earth will now set the precedent that legal claims can be overturned through military threats. If we back down now, what message does that send to other species who might want to challenge human settlements? Several alien delegates nodded thoughtfully. They understood the principle, even if they thought the humans were being foolishly stubborn. In galactic politics, backing down from one threat often led to many more. Elder Kaiser the Krek spoke up, his voice like grinding stones. The humans show courage, but perhaps not wisdom. The Vorac are mighty warriors. Their fleets have conquered many worlds. Ambassador Chan turned to face the massive Krek's elder. We appreciate the concern, Elder Kais, but Earth has faced threats before. Several alien delegates made what passed for chuckling sounds among their species. Earth's military history was well known in the Council database, but most species viewed it as primitive savagery rather than serious warfare. Humans fought with chemical explosives and projectile weapons. They had never faced antimatter cannons or gravity bombs. They knew nothing of real galactic warfare. The session ended with the usual diplomatic pleasantries, but everyone knew the real decisions would be made in private meetings over the following days. Ambassador Chan and her team returned to Earth's embassy, a modest building that looked tiny compared to the massive structures maintained by older species. That night, Chan sent an encrypted message to Earth. She reported on the day's events and recommended that all human colonies in the disputed systems be placed on high alert. She also suggested that the Colonial Defense Force begin moving ships into position, though she doubted they would be much use against serious Vorac warships. On the Vorac homeworld of Korath, Commander Thratch knelt before the war council of his people. The 7 greatest warriors of the Vorac Empire sat in their ceremonial armor, their bone crests marking them as the ultimate authority of their species. The humans refused to show proper respect, Thratch reported. They hide behind their paperwork and ignore the honor of our blood claims. War leader Dracor, eldest of the council, leaned forward. His scars were so numerous they formed patterns across his red skin. He had led the Vorac to victory in dozens of campaigns over the past centuries. Thratch opened communications with the colony's governor. Human leader, I am Commander Thratch of the Vorac Empire. Your species has shown disrespect to ancient claims of honor. We are here to correct this mistake. Governor Marlin appeared on the communication screen. He was an older man with gray hair and worried eyes. Commander, this is a peaceful colony. We have women and children here. Surely any dispute can be resolved through negotiation. Negotiation has failed, Thratch replied. Your leaders chose defiance over wisdom. Now you will see the price of such foolishness. Evacuate all civilian areas. We will begin targeted strikes on military and industrial facilities in 1 standard hour. The next hour was chaos on New Geneva. Families loaded into ground vehicles and fled to the countryside. The few military personnel on the planet began broadcasting surrender signals, hoping to minimize damage. Most colonists had never seen war beyond historical documentaries. Thrax's fleet began its demonstration. Plasma beams lanced down from orbit, destroying the small military base in seconds. The orbital station vanished in a flash of light. Industrial facilities were reduced to glowing craters. The strikes were precise and professional. The Vorac officers could destroy a building without damaging structures next to it. This was meant to be a lesson, not a massacre. But technology sometimes fails. The targeting computer on Thrax's flagship suffered a minor malfunction. A plasma beam meant for a communications facility shifted 3 degrees off target. The beam hit the New Geneva Children's Hospital. 847 children died in that moment. They were playing in recreation areas, sleeping in their beds, being treated for minor illnesses. The plasma beam vaporized the building in less than a second. Thrax stared at his tactical display in horror. His officer confirmed the readings with a shaking voice. "Commander, we hit a medical facility, a children's hospital." Thrax felt something cold settle in his chest. The Vorac were warriors, but they were not monsters. The protection of younglings was sacred across all civilized species. "Cease fire," Thrax ordered. "All ships, cease fire immediately." He opened an emergency channel. "Governor Marlin, there has been a terrible accident. One of our weapons malfunctioned. We struck a medical facility." Marlin's face appeared on screen, streaked with tears. "You destroyed the children's hospital." Thrax bowed his head in shame. "Governor, please understand, this was not intentional. Our targeting systems failed. We offer immediate medical assistance and reparations according to galactic law." But Marlin had already cut the communication. Within hours, news of the tragedy spread across human space. Images of the destroyed hospital appeared on every screen. Names and faces of the dead children were broadcast continuously. The galaxy watched as humanity mourned its young. Ambassador Chan received the news in her embassy office. She sat in silence for a long time, staring at the list of casualties. 847 names, 847 futures erased. Then she began making calls, first to Earth's government, then to military commanders, then to contacts throughout human space. Each conversation was brief and quiet, but the message was the same. The children were dead. Someone would pay. The human silence lasted 3 days. No official statement. No press conferences beyond carefully controlled memorial footage. But behind closed doors, the machine of war was waking. Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Rourke watched feeds and production reports that most citizens hadn't known existed. The decades-old shipyards in the asteroid belt spun back to life. Automated miners poured raw ore into smelters. Assembly lines retooled from peaceful freighters to warships designed with a doctrine the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. The official fleets that the Galactic Council knew about were real, but deliberately limited. Window dressing to preserve the image of a young species learning to be civilized. The truth beneath the surface was a different calculus entirely. "Status report," Rourke said to the officers gathered around him. Colonel Keene replied, "All defense contractors have received activation codes. Hidden yards are online. Retired engineers are reporting in. The colonies are evacuating non-essential personnel. Mining platforms are moving to secured orbits. Civilian traffic is being rerouted." "Intelligence?" Rourke asked. "Vorac posture remains essentially unchanged in public," Keene said. Commander Thrax recalled for inquiry, Dracor issuing regret and accepting reparations publicly. "Their assessments still rank us as a minimal threat. They misread us for too long." Rourke let the silence hang a moment. "Activate Operation Memorial." Keene's fingers hovered for a heartbeat over the console. "Sir, once we begin, there's no recalling it. The aliens will see what we're capable of." "Good," Rourke said quietly. "They need to know." Across human space, special operations teams already in position received activation codes. Modified propulsion drives powered up, stealth signatures were refined, and small teams inserted on Vorac worlds tightened their grips. Their orders were precise: cultural sites first, sacred temples, libraries, monuments, followed by facilities that trained the next generation of Vorac warriors. Everything was surgical in intent if not in effect. Phase 1 began at dawn local to Corval, the spiritual heart of the Vorac. High Priest Vorac watched morning prayers through his temple's crystal dome until the sky tore open. With unnatural light, objects fell from orbit with speeds that made the dome shudder. Antimatter warheads detonated in controlled bursts, obliterating archives, temples, and memorial gardens while leaving industrial and military installations untouched. Within hours, centuries of recorded memory reduced to craters and static. On the Vorac home command, Dracor watched sensor feeds and felt the old certainties crack. 18 sacred worlds, his officer reported. All cultural sites destroyed. No military installations engaged. No claim of responsibility. A single message arrived in perfect Vorac script. You killed 847 of our children. We have destroyed 847 of your most sacred sites. This is just the beginning. Dracor barked orders that could not change the facts. Fleet mobilization. Emergency communiques. Appeals to the Galactic Council. Communications lit up with static. Humans had isolated his systems selectively. The Council's procedural safety nets were denied to him in the precise window, when he needed them most. Phase 2 unfolded with different instruments. Captain Sana led an infiltration team on Gark, a planet whose naval academy shaped Vorac officers for centuries. Her team used stolen and repurposed alien tech to slip past sensors that had never been tested against human ingenuity. In tunnels beneath the academy, they emplaced devices designed to kill living tissue. Without marring infrastructure, neutron devices that left walls, lights, and computers intact but stopped hearts and minds. Charges placed, Sergeant Hale reported through the comms. Devices armed and ready. Execute, came the cold command from orbit. No explosions signaled the deeds. The academy stood in the morning light as it always had, empty halls, lit displays, perfectly preserved simulators. But in classrooms, barracks, and mess halls, the next generation of Vorac officers lay dead and unmarked. Across multiple worlds, identical operations produced identical results. The Vorac would find the bodies in the unburned training centers and understand with bone-deep dread that their ability to regenerate a warrior class had been destroyed. Admiral Rourke watched the tally. Phase 2 complete, Colonel Keene reported. Vorac training capacity reduced by an estimated 97%. The efficiency of the strikes stunned many human commanders. They had not simply chosen targets, they had chosen effects. They spared infrastructure, machinery, and artifacts that could be studied or repurposed. They removed the living core, the people who made the Vorac a warrior society. Status on Phase 3, Rourke asked. All assets in position, Keene responded. If you authorize, we can begin the systematic elimination of population centers. The Vorac fleets will not be able to protect cultural and civilian concentrations at scale. Rourke remembered the faces flickering on his screens from the new Geneva broadcast. Small bodies carried out of a ruined hospital. He thought of the parents who watched. Begin Phase 3, he said. Human battle fleets, the real ones. Those built in secret and optimized for a doctrine of termination rather than attrition, revealed themselves in systems where Vorac population centers clustered. The signatures that had slept in far reaches of space snapped into motion. 60 human warships slipped through hyperspace in formation outside Korra's security umbrellas. Draker's sensors registered the numbers and strength and briefly believed he saw a mistake. Vorac assessments had never assumed humanity would keep such things hidden. Open communications, Dracor ordered. A bridge camera view opened and showed the human flagship. Admiral Rourke's face filled the screen, older, scarred, and unemotional. War Leader Dracor, Rourke said, you killed our children. Now we will remove everything you value. His voice was calm, clinical, final. You cannot mean to attack defenseless populations, Dracor replied. This would violate every law of civilized warfare. Rourke's expression did not change. We do not fight civilized wars. We do not call wars civilized when our children die. This is total war. Surrender your command structure and withdraw your claims, or we will dismantle your civilization's ability to ever rise again. The battle above Korath was not a contest. Human ships maneuvered with unpredictable vectors and fired munitions. That broached Vorac defense doctrines. Within hours, the pride of the Vorac home fleet was shredded, debris glinting in the black like spent teeth. Human weapons struck orbital infrastructure, command nodes, and sensor rays with precision that avoided population centers at first, until it did not. Faced with the humiliation of a shattered fleet, Dracor offered unconditional surrender. You have won, he said quietly into the comms. Please spare our people. Admiral Rourke's reply was a statement of erasure, The Vorac Empire, as you understood, it no longer exists. What happens to your people now depends on whether they understand that fact. Word of the Vorac destruction spread like shock through the galaxy. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. 200 species filled the crystal dome chamber, voices layered in dozens of tongues. The weight of centuries of diplomacy seemed suddenly fragile. Speaker Valdres hovered at the center, his energy form flickering. Order, he intoned. The council will maintain decorum. But decorum did not fit the scale of what had occurred. Refugee convoys limped in from ruined sacred worlds. Images of intact buildings with no living inhabitants played in loops. The Vorac had been left alive in many places, but their cultural backbone, temples, libraries, training grounds had been turned into tombs and ruins. Ambassador Chan walked to the podium. She looked smaller than she had at earlier hearings, grief visible in the set of her jaw. When she spoke, the chamber quieted. You want to know why we destroyed the Vorac Empire? Chan asked. They killed our children. It was an accident, protested Counselor Vexty. Commander Thratch accepted responsibility. Reparations were offered. Chan nodded. Yes, an accident. Reparations. Under galactic law, it should have ended. But galactic law was written by civilizations that could afford to treat warfare as regulated competition. Human history is not like that. We learned to fight on a world where everything tried to kill us. We did not have the luxury to make war into sport. When someone destroys our children, we cannot afford to assume it will not happen again. She held their gaze as she gave them the rest of the calculus. We attacked what made the Voracan Empire, their culture, their training, their ability to replenish war. We left the people alive to remember what they had lost. We wanted the message to be felt, not merely recorded. Murmurs rippled. Proportional, someone asked. It is proportional, Chan replied. They took the futures of 847 human children. We took their civilization's future. She then presented a treaty, the Vorac Accords. The document guaranteed absolute protection for human civilians and created a system by which any attack on a signatory's children would authorize immediate, overwhelming human intervention. It granted Earth vetoes on Council military actions and created mutual defense obligations. With humanity as the guarantor, the chamber debated, argued, and assessed. Tactical analyses were put on display. In a hypothetical total war between humanity and the rest of known space, human doctrine showed a path to victory in months, not years. The Council's oldest members, those who had thought their institutions unassailable, discovered that their assumptions about warfare were dated. When votes were tallied, the result was stark: 197 in favor, 0 opposed, 3 abstentions. Ambassador Chan's closing words were simple and cold. Earth accepts the responsibility you have placed upon us. Sign the accords and your children will be protected. Refuse and you will stand alone. Outside the chamber, delegates processed the new reality. For many, relief edged out horror. The human enforcement of the new rule would be brutal, but it promised a certainty that their own systems had never guaranteed. That children would not be acceptable casualties. Within a year, the ripples were obvious. Pirate enclaves emptied as human task forces wiped them out. Disputes that once simmered for decades were diffused under the shadow of human intervention. Civilian casualties declined. Vorac refugees drifted across neutral systems, alive, proud survivors, but stripped of the institutions that had defined them. Their histories became academic curiosities, and in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, a memorial wall bore 847 names. Visitors read and felt the story beneath them, not a story of stone, but a certainty born of fury. Humanity had given the galaxy a memorial that was more than memory. It was a doctrine. The vote for the Vorac Accords was the hinge of history. When Speaker Valdres declared it passed, the chamber felt the weight of millennia shift. The council had never voted unanimously on anything of consequence, abstentions aside. This was as close as it had ever come. Ambassador Chan left the chamber with quiet dignity, her team walking behind her in silence. Cameras recorded her every step. Across hundreds of systems, billions of beings watched, realizing that the future no longer belonged to the oldest species, but to the one that had been dismissed as an upstart for 5 short decades. Inside her secure command centers, Admiral Rourke received upgrades. Phase 3 had been suspended. Civilian population centers were spared, for now. The Vorac Empire was finished not by genocide, but by cultural excision. Their sacred worlds were craters, their academies were tombs, their fleets were wreckage. Survivors lived, but without context, without pride. It would take generations to rebuild, and even then, they would never again be what they had been. Colonel Keene handed Rourke a new intelligence report. Most council species are already moving to formalize their defense pacts with us. The Crystalline Union wants joint fleet patrols. The Aquatic Coalition is offering forward bases. The Kreks are pledging mineral resources. Rourke studied the numbers. The galaxy was falling into alignment, not because of trust, but because of fear. He knew it, and so did Chan. But fear was a tool, and humans had learned to wield tools better than most. On Vorac refugee ships, families clung to each other. Children who had been raised on tales of honor and strength whispered new words in alien tongues. Their parents wept quietly, not for their dead, but for their future. Stolen cleanly by a species that had chosen to teach them a lesson rather than erase them entirely. The Galactic Council chamber itself changed. A memorial wall was installed along its central promenade. A slab of alloy etched with 847 names. Delegates from every civilization passed it on their way to debates. And the lesson was renewed daily. The children of New Geneva. Not collateral damage. Not statistics. Names. Captain Sana and Sergeant Hale returned from their operations to quiet commendations. Their teams were rotated back into obscurity. Shadows who had rewritten the balance of power. The neutron devices they had armed were dismantled, studied, archived. But their effect was permanent. Vorac officer culture had ended in a single night. Governor Marlin visited Earth and sat through endless hearings where colonists demanded vengeance, protection, and clarity. He spoke softly of the accident that had started it all, but he carried on his shoulders the knowledge that history would not remember nuance. History would remember that 847 children had died, and that humanity had responded by altering galactic civilization forever. Admiral Rourke convened a final review of Operation Memorial. We achieved our objectives. The Vorac are no longer a threat. The Council has accepted the new order. Casualties were minimal by our metrics. His voice carried no triumph, only exhaustion. He knew the truth. This was not a victory to celebrate, but a necessity to endure. Ambassador Chan stood again at the Council chamber months later. The age of civilized warfare is over, she said. The age of absolute protection has begun. Your children are safe because we will destroy anyone who threatens them. Your civilizations will endure because we will eliminate any force that tries to end them. Her words, transmitted across the stars, became doctrine. Children became inviolate currency in galactic politics. Wars that once brushed past civilian populations found themselves constrained. Because the threat of human reprisal was absolute. Pirates disappeared. Slavers vanished. Petty raiders who had plagued neutral zones for centuries simply stopped. Culled by fleets that never bothered with surrender demands. Worlds long under siege flourished under the umbrella of human guarantees. The galaxy adapted. Some species embraced humanity's dominance as protection. Others see that their loss of sovereignty, but signed the accords anyway. A handful remain outside, proud or stubborn. The wanderers, the remnant, the solitaries. Their leaders reminded their people that independence was worth risk, but even they watched their borders with new vigilance. Because they had seen the ruins of Vorac temples, the empty academies, the silent fleets. In time, the Vorac became a cautionary tale. Their refugee children grew up telling stories that had no context, myths without nations. Their ancestors' names carved in ruins broadcast across neutral systems, reminders of what had been lost. The lesson was harsh, but it was permanent. Civilizations could die without being killed. And always, at the center of the council chamber, the wall of names remained. Delegates from 1,000 systems paused as they passed it, running claws, tendrils, or energy forms across the etched alloy. 847 names, 847 reasons to remember what humans had done. Humanity had not built a statue, nor a monument. They had built certainty. The children of New Geneva would never be forgotten, because their memorial was the new galactic order itself.